I'd like to welcome everybody for joining us. If you have not yet seen Phil present, you're in for a real treat. He is a super presenter. And the application that we're talking about here is Verso. Hopefully everybody's got it on their mobile device so they can join in. And that'll be it. We'll be fielding questions while you're watching the webinar. Steve Anderson will be getting on in a second to interact with Phil. And that's about it. Phil, take it away.
That's great. So thanks everybody for giving me your time. I know it's for a lot of you it's quite late at night, so it's really great that you're on. I recognise quite a few names on the list today from previous sessions, which is fantastic. So why we've put this webinar together this time is because the first two looking at personalising learning and the last one looking at deep learning, then transitioning from surface to deep, we're really looking at the pedagogy, and we're using Verso as a tool to engage you and to think about questioning and thinking about creating provocations to activate your learners and to activate learning. So you got to experience the process from the student side of things with me behaving as your teacher. What I really want to do, and following a lot of requests from people, is we've put this session together today just really to get you thinking from the teacher's perspective and to get you creating a teacher account and starting to make some of these things for yourself. So, and that's in advance of a session we're doing on the 15th, which is called Feedback, 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 which is really looking at the place of feedback in the classroom and outside the classroom, and again, tapping into that whole issue about activating student voice as a way of informing the cycle of teacher and student inquiry. So look out for that session on the 15th, because it's going to be a really cool one. And with the knowledge you get on how to create these things for yourself, I think come the 15th of December, you're in a really strong position to actually go out and put some of these things into practice. So what I'm going to do is just today is look at getting you started with teacher accounts, creating and sharing activities, flips, classes with your students, adding your Google account, and talking about other repositories, spaces, collaborative environments that you can actually incorporate into Verso. And I'll be giving you a document, PDF, explaining how to really go deeper with Google, which some of you got from the last session as well. Then you're going to create some flips. Now, obviously I can't see what you're all doing, but I'll try and take that fairly slowly and give you a chance to actually build something that you can put in front of your students tomorrow. So we look at then taking the student commentary, grouping ideas together so you can inform your practice in class, and then looking at the data that Verso gives you and how to respond to that and act on what the students revealing as their learning needs. And then a little bit of tidying up at the end. We'll be looking at copying, deleting, and editing activities that you've created in the session and moving forward. So just really to go to some of the pre-activities. I know it's been Thanksgiving in the US, but some of you have had a chance to get into them. So have a quick look at these just to explain why I gave you these particular activities. If you haven't done them, it's not a problem for this particular one, although the session on the 15th will have some a requirement that you've actually engaged with some of the content in advance. So do, again, look out for that prompt shortly before that session. So the first video, the first activity is this one from a school in Victoria in Australia, and it's a teacher who's created his own video using Verso. Now, the reason I included that, I wanted you to actually, one, look at the structure of the questioning, the journey that I'm taking students on when I try and find out what they already know, in this case about energy, for different forms of energy, and then thinking about what I need to know about their understanding of energy conservation and energy transfer ready for the next lesson. So what I've done here is just left that one in because it's got a teacher-generated video, and he just made that video using his mobile phone with Verso, taps into the camera on your phone, or you can film, shoot, fire it straight to your students. And we're going to do a little bit of that today. So if you have got a mobile device with you, it would be great to actually create a Verso account on there, or download the app while I'm just going to the next piece. and you can just get that from any of your app stores, whether it's Google or Apple. So what I want to just show you that one, just because you can create your own content. For lots of teachers, creating content is a huge leap. And what we've tried to do with Verso is give you familiar technology, you know, on your phone, your iPad, your tablets, that you can just record. We all know how to record a video on our phone or to record our voice on our phone, but then to be able to use that in class to activate your learners becomes really, really powerful. And we'll look at some more examples as we start to create our own today. The other one, Flip 1, some of you will recognize from the previous session, where it just explains to you what Verso is. That activity comes preloaded when you create your teacher account, and it's a great, I like to think of it as a second activity to put in front of your students. It asks them to think about the things that Verso allows, the way it behaves, the things it requires of them. And I always think if you give them another one first, and then they do this particular activity, they're in a better position to discuss it, so you get much better contribution with students. So that's preloaded, ready for you to use. The third one, which I've called Flip 2, is something that I'm really keen to engage my users in. When I get students using Verso, I really want the students to take responsibility for their own learning. I mean, this is part of what Verso is all about. So what I do is ask the students a very simple question. You know, if we're going to be commenting on each other's work and responding to provocations and giving and receiving feedback, what makes a great comment? So what I don't want is students saying, yeah, me too, that's cool, I agree, because those comments have no value. So what we want to do is very, very quickly ratchet up the students' contributions, and if I can get them having this conversation in the app, then I can group their ideas. What we'll come up with as a class is a collective call to action. This is how we intend to behave. These are the type of contributions that as a class we're going to value and we'll give those social media style likes to. So it just gets us up on the right foot so we're all working together to raise our game. What we do find with Verso, and any of you that have started using it will notice that by the third or the fourth time students use this, they really start to value and respond to the data they get about their own behaviours. And they start to raise the quality of their contribution because they want those likes. Those likes are incredibly important to students. So that activity isn't preloaded, but if anybody wants that activity or similar activities, just give me a shout and I can have those loaded into your accounts ready to run with your class. And that goes for anything that I give you today. If you want those things student ready, just mail me or hit me on Twitter, and I'll give you that and give my mail at the end, and we can put those into your class ready to get started with. And on that one, the Happy Holidays one is one that you can put in front of your students tomorrow, just to have a go. It could be a good first introduction to the app, but that one's there, and we've kind of run that in a few places locally and got phenomenal responses from the students. So again, it's one worth looking at maybe later on after we finish the session. The images one is just really to show you that it doesn't have to be video. It can just be an image. And in this case, I've taken just a picture that I've got on my phone or my iPad or my Android tablet, Android device, and it's just an image that the students can respond to. It's fun too. Something really pitched around the grade 5, 6 level here, and I want them to actually, I want to understand their capacity to actually create a newspaper headline in that first introductory paragraph to persuade the reader to move to read on. So really simple, grab an image, take it again as I go or something I've already got on my device. Really easy way to do it. So these are just there to give you a flavour of what's possible. And then the final one I put in there is just using a web link, and in this case to a phenomenal website, the National Archives docs teach in the US. We've got a phenomenal comparable service in Australia and in the UK. There's another one, and I'll give you addresses for those as well today. And getting the kids to look at primary historical evidence and then to respond to that in the app. So, because obviously the thing that Verso does for us to add value is gets the students actually thinking about sharing their own perspective in that anonymous environment without having access to what other people are saying. So it gives me access to student original thinking. So what I really want to do before we get you started is just really remind you of this notion of a provocation. Having engaged with that content, and you'll have access to that continuously after the webinar, just that notion of what we mean by provocation. It's a piece of content, any kind of content, or a learning experience coupled with a question or a bold statement that's designed to challenge the kids to think, to allow them to extend their own ideas so that as a teacher and other students then have access to original thought from every student in the class. And I don't personally believe there's any other way to do that at the moment. So that initial anonymity and not being able to see anybody else's idea until I post my own means that what we see on the page in Verso is absolutely original thinking from every student. So what we do then is we go from bottom up here, we come from having my own idea, my idea about something, and then as soon as I hit respond, I'm then exposed to everybody else's idea. So what everybody else thinks or believes to be true, their misconceptions, their ideas, their hypotheses, their opinions, whatever, I'm exposed to more then. Now, depending on how the teacher structured the question, and this lives and dies by the quality of your questioning, I can then be driven to comment on other people's work in a bid to form relationships between their thinking and my own and prior learning. Okay, and so that when we move into the classroom environment, we can start to actually really dig into that relational thinking between each other's ideas and new learning that's coming in, but also to be able to start to extend that and apply that to new scenarios. So what Verso is doing is really initiating that thinking process and driving every student forward. So what I'd like you to do, if you're using the app or if you're on the browser, is to go into your student account for Verso, which I can see a lot of you've created, and go to classes on the left-hand side, select classes, and then you'll see an icon that says join class. And what I'd like you to do is add in this code, it'll ask you for a class code. This is how your students join your classes. The code is V for Victor, LM1M. So just write that down. And that class code will give you access to a whole load of examples of provocations that have been created by teachers from grade 1 going right the way through to 12, and also some that have been designed by schools for internal professional learning with the teachers. So just write that down, BVLM1M, and that now will give you access, if I go into the app, to one of my classes, which is called Workshop Examples. And in there are 42 different examples of provocations that hopefully will kickstart your thinking and activate your learning and give you some ideas. If contextually they're not about what you're teaching, the idea, the thought process, the journey I'm taking the students on, or the teachers that wrote these are taking the students on, should become apparent. So do take some time over the coming days to have a look at those, maybe even open them up in screen and discuss them with your students. What's actually happening here? What's being asked? And they range, as I say, right the way through all different kind of subject areas: social studies, health, art, math. There's some cool new stuff in there on bullying. So if some of you went in before, you'll now see, let's just see, do not see where the pre-activities are in my student account. Okay. Pre-activities. So Kathleen's saying she can't see, oh sorry, my mic's fading. Okay, Kathleen, I've got you. So I'll give you those codes. Okay, the code, Beth, I'll put that on again. In fact, what I'll do is I'll just put that on screen just for the moment. So the code for that is V for Victor, LM1M. Okay, and those codes, that code will get you into that environment. If you have any problems getting in or seeing this content, do jump into the question box, because Rob can help you get sorted and can resolve any issues you might be having. Okay, so BVL M1M. Okay. Okay. So, what I'd now like you to do, just before we get started, I'm going to give you a couple of more things. These slides, by the way, with this information are in a folder with a whole lot of other content, which I'm going to talk to in a moment, so that will help you in moving forward. So the folder address is the top one. So it's http://j.mp/verso USA. And that's a Google folder, and in there I've put a PDF with this presentation in it. I've also put documents that explain the thinking behind each of those examples in the example community, so you can actually go back, and when you've got more time you can go through those and look at the teacher's intent, what they're trying to do, why they set things up the way they did. So do just take a note of that one. The other place, well, sorry, I'm just clicking the wrong thing here. The other place you can go is versoapp.com, and on that site there's a blog, and that blog has, I'll just quickly show you that. That blog, before we move forward, has a whole load of classroom-ready sites where I've linked them by subject area, where you can find content that's free and that works incredibly well inside the Verso environment. So again, free content working inside the free app, you know, it can't be bad. And there's stuff for modern languages there, English as second language learners, a whole load of stuff for STEM. Some pretty cool, some stuff here I absolutely love using with students. Numberphile I'm particularly fond of for math, and it just goes on. There's a whole load of things, and if you've got any sites where you've got great content, please let me know. So I'm just about to update this this section. Kathleen, you're asking about a student account. You should be in your student account, but if you're not, we can help you out afterwards. But we're about to create a teacher account, so don't worry about that just for a second. Right. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to get you to, if you're in your student account of Verso, I'm going to get you to log out, and we're going to create a teacher account. So in my version of Verso, so I've got my account here. At the bottom, I've got a log out button. Okay, so you can hit log out, and then you'll be hit with a screen that looks like this. You'll need to hit create an account. I'm a teacher, and then, sorry, my screen's bouncing around. Let me just do it. It might be easier if I just do this with you, actually. If I go in here, if I log out, so log out of my app. Then at the bottom here, I've got create an account. Select I'm a teacher, and then we start the sign-up process. You need your first name, last name, what you're known as to your students. Then you'll need your professional email address, a password that you're going to remember, and then select your country from the list. What you'll then need is your school postal or zip code, and then that will present you with a list of schools in the list, and just agree to the terms here and then hit sign me up. So just fill in the form and you shouldn't have any problems. Just give you a few minutes to do that.
Hey Phil, this is Steven. While people are doing that, one thing I know that may come up as a question, and maybe we can head it off, is if they're not affiliated with a school or don't have a school that they would put in, do they just need to pick something, or is there an other option? Or
good question, actually. We don't people who are using it generally are affiliated to a school, so if your school's not in the list, you can let us know and we can have your institution or who you are, or we can fix that. We can sort that for you. Is anybody, by the way, not affiliated to a school? Let me just ask one of my tech guys actually, just to make sure what the response to that should be. Just one moment while you're doing that. Okay, yeah, the answer is just put your personal zip code into the zip code space, and then you'll get an option to add your school, so you can basically brand yourself as however you want. Okay, so if you're not affiliated to school, just put your local zip code in, and then call yourself Mr. Stubbs School or whatever you'd like to be. Okay, so you can add yourself to the list.
Phil, I'm no longer affiliated with a school. I found that if I put in my home address, my local schools pop up, so I just picked a school.
Okay. I wouldn't do that, only because if a school's got Campus, our umbrella product that pulls the data from all the teachers together, they'll kick you out of their school because they'll recognise you not as being a member of staff. So I'd actually put something in there just to say, you know, who you work for, or your company name, or make one up so that we can actually see who's where. Yeah. Okay.
Well, in my case, I just retired from that school in 2005. I think they still remember me.
Oh, they might keep you in there. I don't know. You never know. They might want you on the alumni, Tom. So I'd imagine they would. Yeah. Okay. So
they only wanted to kick me out when I worked there.
Really? I'm going to just get myself...
I was in the superintendent's office more than any of the kids.
Wow. I was, yeah, to get myself back into my account, so I just log myself out to get us going. There we go. So, when you have done that, you'll have a sign that says Get Started. Just click on that and you're good to go. And you'll see I've got lots of classes in here, so I've been making them. You'll just have the one. And so the first thing you need to do is to create a class to put some students in. Now, just a word about classes. In an elementary school, the teachers prefer to create classes around the things that they're doing with the students. So I might have a class called Rivers, or a class called, I don't know, Australia's in conflict, or newspaper writing. Okay, because all the classes are color-coded by subject areas. So for the students, they'll obviously in time belong to multiple classes. So different teachers teaching them, they'll have classes that different teachers have created, and they'll belong to multiple spaces. So it's worth thinking about how you want this to work for you. In high schools and colleges, the teachers tend to prefer to go for timetabled classes, because you can create content for one class and then you can copy it and put it into other parallel classes that you teach. So if you're a history teacher and you've got 4 year 7 classes that you're teaching, you're working together on reconstruction, you might actually just create some activities in those timetable classes and then share them amongst all 4, so each class is working independent of the others. Okay, so think about how you want this to work for you. My personal preference is to create classes around the things that I teach, because by doing that, the classes are then built around the way I curate my content is the way I access it later on. So what I've got in my pocket on my phone or on my mobile device is all the stuff I've been teaching this year, all the people that I'm teaching that to, or I'm learning with in that space, and I can just churn that out and use it again. So I'm investing in the future. So I'm going to create a class now. So it's got the button there, Add Class. So my class is going to be about Australia, and it's going to be a geography class. So I just choose from the list, and again, if a subject that you teach, I'm using the Australian version here. Those of you in the US will have slightly different subject areas, but if you have subjects in here that you teach that aren't in that list, we can put those in very, very quickly. So again, it's just a case of going over to the Help button letting us know, and we can actually help you localize it so you've got the headings that you need, okay? The year or the grade, if you're in the US, I'm doing this with year 8. And then expected number of students, you don't need to fill that in. I'm just going to, I don't know how many in my class at the moment. So I just hit the plus button, and now I've created that class called Australia. It's this kind of olivey green color because it's a geography class, and that's the color we've designated. And then next to that is a code. So all I need to do is click on that code, and then let the students see that, and then that's the code they add to join the class. So obviously the students can't create classes, but they'd have that. So rather than create class, they'll have a join class button. They type that code in, and now they're linked to me as their teacher. Okay, so have a go at just creating a class or a couple of classes so you can start to build some content. Okay, just give you a couple of minutes. Again, if there's any questions, do jump into the question box. Okay, so Erin, Erin, you're saying that you work with teachers across schools. Okay, so if you put your zip code of where you work, then give yourself a name, so the board office, whatever you want to call that, you'll be good to go. So yeah, Stella's asking, we've noted that it's kind of similar to Moodle. Yeah, kids join the classes, they self-register, and you're good to go. Beverly is asking why she can't see comments or questions from the students. If you're in your student account and you can see those activities, you won't see what anybody else is saying until you've posted your own response. Verso is designed to get original thought for every student, so you can't see anybody else's contribution until you've made your own as well. So once you post, it then unlocks the community. You can see what other people are saying, their response, and of course that's anonymous as well. Okay, so we've got ourselves a class, and if I go back to my class tab on the left-hand side, you see I've got more classes than anybody would ever need. That Australia class is down there in the bottom corner, so if I just click on that, I'm going to create some content in there now. Yeah, good question from Kathleen. How specific do you set your classes? So Kathleen, if you're teaching 6th and 8th grade math, pre-algebra and algebra, it's really what's going to work for you. There's no right or wrong way to do this. It could be, I mean, if some of these classes are getting the same instruction, you could put the kids together and they could work together, you know, break down the walls of the classroom. But creating timetabled class is probably the way to go if you're teaching. I mean, math teachers generally create timetable classes, whatever you name those timetable class, and then if you create an activity for pre-algebra or as an activity in there on trigonometry, you can create that in one class and then you can send that to other classes as well. So you don't have to create again and again and again. If you've got classes that you teach, they can be copied and distributed. Okay, so I'm going to create an activity now, and so now that I'm in my class and the students, we give them the code, can see this stuff, I'm going to add a flip. So if I hit the add flip button, I've got some choices here, and the first thing I'm going to do is the easiest one of all, and that's just to use my URL. So I can go to a website, and I really like National Radio. Listen Current's a great site. There's some stuff here at the moment on the Ferguson protests. So copy that URL. Similarly, those sites like the National Records Office, and again, they're all listed on my blog. All of those spaces are really cool, but I'm going to use this to do some work around the Ferguson protest with my students. So I just got that URL. I hit the URL button, paste that in. Now, obviously, with a URL, that could be a YouTube URL, it could be a Vimeo, it could be PollDaddy, it could be Prezi. Anything that can be shared with a URL can be pasted into that post. And obviously, just something as simple as a link to a website you want the students to go and visit. Okay. Then I need to give it a title, so I'm going to call this Ferguson. And then I'd actually give them something to think about. Now, the great thing about this site, if anybody's familiar with it, is they've got phenomenal questions with each of these sound files, these radio ports. I'm going to steal one of theirs for now. And bear in mind, you're asking students for a first response, which they'll have to respond to without seeing anybody else's thinking. The next layer of collaboration is student-to-student commentary. So I tend to separate my ideas up. So this is how I want to respond, and then this is how I want you to comment on one another's ideas, because this is where I'm driving my students to look at what other people are saying and to start to connect their thinking with the thinking of their peers. Okay, so this is where I'd put something else. Think about, challenge, whatever. Okay, however I want to engage, and that's all down to context and purpose. So having got that done, I just hit the create flip or the plus button, and that activity is now gone to my students. If I follow through but they can click on the link and see that. If I click the Australia class, you'll see in that class is now an activity. And I'll just do that again. Do this along with me, but I'll just do that again. I'll add another one. This time I'm going to use a YouTube clip. I'm going to Kid President. Love this little guy. Get the clip. Put the title in. It's a URL. Paste the URL into there. Think about, obviously contextualize it in that important part about the question. Obviously you'll spend more time on this than I do. Hit the plus button. That's now created that. It's rendered the video ready for the students to watch. If I go back, follow those breadcrumbs to Australia class, I've then got a second activity that has gone straight to my students' devices. Okay. So have a go at just creating one using a link, and then I'm going to talk to a slightly more advanced usage. Again, do use the question bar to chase any sort of issues you're having.
I was just thinking about, is it possible, so if I create a flip and I have a teacher next door, is it possible for me to share that flip with them?
It is. It's absolutely, yeah. So we've got Verso's. What we're doing today is all inside the free app. So you can do this on a browser, on your mobile device, and whatever the students bring to class with them or have in their pocket or at home, they can engage with this. The teachers to share flips, we've got a product called Campus. Now Campus takes every data from every teacher's device and puts it in one place. So it allows you to build a community where in a school you can share activities to your own library and a school library, so your colleagues can pick these things up and run with them as well. So, but for that you actually would need to have the Campus product, and that's at cost. It's not a lot of money, but it is at cost, because obviously we're sharing a lot of data, and it's a big product that actually looks at taking student data and showing behaviours across different subject areas, different grades, and it becomes really exciting as a change leadership tool. So we can all start to shape the direction of our school together by actually looking at data of what we're doing that seems to be working in terms of engaging and activating our learners. But that's a separate product. Happy to take any calls about that over the coming weeks. Schools that are using that are incredibly excited about the capacity for change. It is absolutely something that's really about building social capacity in your school community, but with a mission to actually deliver change. It's phenomenal. So I've done that. I'm going to add another flip now and start to talk about another option, which I know some of you are probably using, things like Google Docs and your Google Drive. So this time I'm going to look at adding a flip, and now rather than using a URL, which is great for just YouTube and the like, I've got a link to my YouTube channel and my Google Drive. So I can go to Google Drive here, and I can choose documents that I've created to share with my students. There's one here I want to use on change and causation. I'm just going to call this test and just put some nonsense in there for now. So if I create the plus now, you'll notice when I did that, my Google Drive docs were all available to me in the app. So if I look at that attachment now, as a student would, they can go into that change and causation document. They can add their ideas and their content. But as a teacher, what I really want the students to do, having done that, I want them then in Verso to synthesize each other's thinking and share their own thinking as it now sits, having worked through that activity together. And so it's giving me visibility on the process and the outcomes. And I think moving from that surface sharing at the top end to actually having the deeper question in the app, and the teacher and each student getting visibility on everybody's thinking around that, how's each student in the class pulled that together in terms of, and got a deeper outcome. And again, that doesn't have to be good. It could be a whole load of things you use there, Poll Daddy, Socrative, things you might be using already that you can link in that then actually add that deeper value. So to attach my Google Drive, I have to just go over to my settings in the left-hand nav bar. So the settings tab there, and you can see mine's connected here. But you'll have one say connect. Now you need to do this on your browser, not in the app. It needs to be done in the browser. So in your browser, you just hit the connect button, put in your Google username and password, and then your account is then connected. So you can do just like I did just now. You can start to draw documents out of that account to use with your students. Now, a question we get asked every time we do this with schools is, can the students see all of my documents? Well, no, they can't. They can only see the document that you're choosing to share from your Google Drive. So there's my change in causation one again. Put it in there, contextualize it, hit the plus button, and now my students have got that as an activity ready to go. Okay, so I see huge value in connecting my Google account, because getting the students to contribute in a Google Doc or Shed or PowerPoint or spreadsheet, getting them to work together then, contribute, is great. And a lot of you are probably doing that with your kids already. But then getting them to have that processing and thinking and synthesis, and having that then appear in Verso, again, without seeing what other people thought, and then having that next layer of deep thinking, I think is really exciting. Okay, so do look at connecting. If you have any problems with connecting those accounts, do let us know, because we can absolutely help you. Okay, is it possible? I've got a few questions around this. Yes, in terms of editing, right. So just show you again, can we ask you to show that again how to connect? So again, I go over to the left-hand nav bar, and I go to settings, hit the settings button, and I get my personal settings there. And then there's a button here, mine's red, yours will be blue. If you haven't connected, it'll say connect your Google account. And when you hit that button, it asks for your Google username and password, and it'll make the connection. And then your documents live inside the app. Okay. Right. Some people are asking about editing the class name. So if I just go to my class, I'll show you how to do this. My class is called Australia at the moment. On the right-hand corner of my screen, I've got a little edit pencil. If I hit that pencil, I can go in here and I can edit my class name. Okay, so if you want to edit that, absolutely, you can just hit the pencil, and now you can see it's called Australian Jog. Okay, thanks. Right, so other places I can put my content in from. So because my Google account's now connected, I can hit the YouTube button, and my YouTube favorites that I've tagged as favorites will all appear in here. So I've got one here on bullying, and again, contextualize it, give it a title, set out your expectations and how you want the students to engage with this content, hit the plus, and that's now gone forward to my class. So if I click through to Australian Geography, you'll see I've actually now got all of that activities gone in there ready for the students to watch in terms of bullying. Yeah, Stella, I love your thinking. Yeah, having those add-ons just adds depth to what you're probably currently doing with some of those great applications as well. Fantastic, yeah. So what I want to do now is actually take you a step further. While we're talking about editing, if I want to edit any of this content, so the Kid President activity, if I open that up, the same applies. I can edit that with a little pencil there in the corner, and I can add to that, okay, and then hit the tick, and that's been edited as my students are working in it. So the edit button. The other thing we've got is a copy button. So if I've got an activity here I want to copy, so if I'm teaching 3 classes and I want them all to engage with this separately, I can hit copy, and then I can assign to a different class. I'm going to add it to my math class, hit the plus, and that's now taken that, copied it, and put it into a maths classroom that I'm running alongside. Don't please ask me why I'd ever put kid president in a maths class. But yeah, so copying from one space and giving a version of that to other classes that I'm teaching, yeah, just hitting that copy button, the 2 pieces of paper, and then saying which class I want it to go to, and job done. Okay. Right. Just taking you to the advanced level now. I'm going to use my iPad for this piece. I'm just going to put that on screen using AirPlay. And why I'm using my iPad is because I'm going to actually do some live recording now using my could be using my phone or an Android device, Samsung tablet, doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to go into the app, and you'll see now, go to my classes, and I'm going to scroll through and find my Australia class. There it is. So you can see, doesn't matter what device I'm on, that stuff's there. This time I'm going to add a flip. I've got additional functionality built into the app. So if I'm using a mobile device, I get extra possibilities. And these possibilities I think are really exciting. I can hit the record button, and I can choose photos or videos that I've got stored on my device. Again, incredibly powerful. I've taken videos in class with students, or got students to take videos. I can now grab those, put them into here, and send those around really, really quickly. I can also record audio, and again, just to record my voice and give some audio, some instructions, or record some poetry, record a reading. Really straightforward. We all know how to do that on our phone. Okay, so just hit the record button, we're good. The one that teachers tend to fall in love with really quickly is the video. So I can hit the video button, and you can see now I can take video, choose video that I've got on my device, or I can actually take a video myself now. So here I am in my office, and I'm going to hit the record button. So you can have a look outside the window here. There you go. Welcome to Australia. And hit the stop button. Now I can hit use the video. I can check that. I can retake it. I'm going to use that video. Give it a title. Let's call it test. Instructions. I'm just going to put something in really quickly. And then you hit the plus button or create flip. It will upload that video now and package it, process it, and it's really, really quick. And that video has now gone to my Australia class. So if I click that again, now I've got all these activities, and just wait. It takes about 20 seconds for that to process. That test video down here, it will be good for my students to view. So to be able to do this on the fly in the classroom, or you've been working with a group of students, that's brilliant. Just say that again, let's see what everybody else thinks. Just grab it, send it out there, or kids doing presentations, kids doing some drama or some sport. Just film it, grab it, out it goes, and we're good to go. So I can hit that test one now, and the video should just be about to be ready. There you go. So we can now, the kids can just hit the play button, and they can watch and hear whatever it was that, you know. Now, in terms of a flipped classroom style model, phenomenally straightforward and, you know, and very easy. And again, I could have just done that on my phone. I'm a little bit of an addict, so when I go out and about and I see things, I film them, and I think, well, that'll make a great publication later on. So the great thing is you've got this in your pocket, so you don't. It's immediate. It's got that immediate relevance. Just grab it and use it, and you're good to go. Okay. So just have a look in. Yeah. Just see some questions around this. No, we're good. Okay. So having the app, just get rid of that, just because that's Just take that off screen now. There we go. Just kill that. Just gives that extra dimension of being able to actually record live. So the last thing I want to really talk about is data. Now, I've got some teachers I've been working with on some deep learning with some people in the last group. And as the students work on the activities at a class level, you see data here for all of your students. I've got 108 students in this class, so hopefully you haven't got that many in your class. So if I click on the students here, I can see their engagement in this class for every activity. So I can see, Stella, you've been to a few sessions now, you're one of my top users, so that's fantastic. And I can sort that by the number of comments students are making to one another, or the extent to which their contributions are being valued by the group. The green line shows that Beth has made 13 comments as part of 16 comments in this class, and a phenomenal 50% of the comments she's made have been received a like from the class, which is phenomenal in an anonymous environment. And she's received 13 of those in total. So she's obviously making powerful contributions that's been appreciated by the class. If I scroll down, I can see students who, Nancy here has made some contribution, but it's not been valued. So I can start in time to know the conversations I need to have with some of my students in terms of actually moving them forward in their capacity to collaborate, co-construct, and think critically in this kind of environment. So I'm getting insight into data on their process as well as the students' perspectives as they share in the discussion part of the community. Now, that's great. And what I'm also getting at each activity level, so we go on this Michael Fullen one here that we did last week. For each separate activity, I can also see of those who responded, who made the most, whose response was most valued, who made the most contributions. So you see Brett here made a lot of contribution, but only one of his comments was deemed valuable by the group. So I can start to think about how my students are engaging. I can start to adapt my practice. And the other thing, the important part of Verso, is taking students' ideas. The fact that all my students have now shared, I can hit the group button in that activity. And that group button now allows me to grab students with similar ideas, or Socrative grouping, depending on what we're doing. Let's grab some random students here who seem to be saying the same thing, and I can hit group and it will pull those students together. I can then work with who I've got left, think, well, these students, based on what they're revealing, would be well suited to work together. So now I've got some kids left who aren't grouped yet, so I can go through these. Obviously, you spend some time on this, and I'll group those students. And so when I go back now, I've actually got students grouped, which could be teaching points I need to cover in class before we get started, or physical groupings, or shared misconceptions that I need to address and build into my teaching. Okay, so it's that responsiveness of knowing what my kids think, believe to be true, and then having the capacity to start to organize their thinking so that I can do something about it, or I can set up opportunities for them to do something about it. The final source of data in the free version of the app is the My Stats bar on the left. This tells me how well I'm doing in terms of my capacity to engage my class or the classes that I teach. So for each activity, it shows me the amount of student-to-student commentary. So am I actually positioning this content and these provocations in a way that get my kids talking, that get them fired up and activated and start those conversations, or not? I mean, is it? And I can start to click through and see, well, what did I do there that seemed to really get the kids fired up? What strategies were they deploying that for my class, in the context of what I do, seem to be working? So that data is really important for me to start to hone and refine my practice as part of my cycle of teacher inquiry. Now, the question was asked earlier on about sharing. In Verso Campus, each teacher's data and the student data is pooled, so we can start to look at trends across subject areas, across grades, and things that collectively across our whole campus seems to be working really well. And we can start to draw conclusions from that, and then start to align resource, professional learning, match people together who, to build that social capital, can start to work together to build pedagogical capacity as well. Okay, so I know this is a really rapid fire rush through Verso, and I'm sure there's more questions coming through. So I've got, so Beverly's asking, what's the difference between the green and the blue line? The blue line is the number of student-to-student comments. Okay, so the extent to which I've got my students having conversations about their thinking. And the student-to-student comment for me is the important bit, because that's where students are connecting their thinking with other people's. It's going deep. Okay, it's moving from surface to deep, so it's phenomenally important. So the bigger the blue line, in most instances, the better. The green line is the number of likes the students are awarding one another. So in this one for science, 58% of the contributions made by students received a like. So it gives me an indication of the quality of student contribution. At a student level, it also starts to give me an indication of which students in my class seem to be the biggest influencers. Okay, so Kathleen's asking, once you've grouped students, do they go back and continue to engage with Verso? Is it generally informing instruction? It's at the moment, Kathleen, it's a great question. It's at the moment it informs instruction. But what I can do with that grouping is I can, we are in a release that's coming out very shortly, setting this up so when I group students, they can see which group they're in, so they can start to ask, well, why has my idea been put with these other ideas? So there must be something similar in what I'm saying and what these other people are saying, or not. So it's actually driving the kids to think again, another level, about why they might have had their ideas grouped together. And also, if my idea sits over here, these people's ideas are in a separate group. What are they saying? Why do I think they've been put together? So it adds another layer of depth of critical thinking. Great question. What I can also do with these groups is where I've got lots of students in a group, I can also star a certain student so that their response becomes the uppermost one. So when kids physically get into a group in class, let's hit the group button and show you this. I've got these kids together. I can select Karen's contribution here, and I can star that. So Karen's talking about communication. If I star that, her comment now becomes the one that when the students come together, that's Karen's comment at the start. That's the one I want them to work on physically in a group. That's the conversation starter, okay? So it is actually supporting what happens next in class. Great. Okay, so I don't think there are any more questions there. If there are, keep them coming. I'm just going to show you finally where you can get some support. So I gave you this slide before. The Verso USA folder has got a PDF explaining the value of connecting, going deeper using Google Drive. It also has a paper in there about getting the students to use Verso to ask the questions, moving from surface level questions to deep questions, because if we want problem solvers, we want kids who can ask questions, not just answer them. So sort of turning it on its head, there's a little paper in there. And there's also some research in there as well about critical thinking and how the brain works, and how we've aligned the development of the product with some research. And then there's the strategy document, which looks at questioning, structuring the challenges, the provocations you create, but also prompts to get you to rethink your questioning. When questioning is one of the biggest tools we use as teachers in the classroom, and we ask up to 300 questions a day in a high school as a teacher. The research shows that 85 to 90% of the questions we ask are surface level. So what I've done is I've created a document in there of questioning strategies, just to help have you rethink, once you've got your head around how to create these activities, just to have you start to think, well, I get that. Am I asking the right question? Because if you're looking for visibility on student thinking, visibility comes through a lens. Your question is the lens. So is the lens you're using the right lens? Because all of these activities live and die by the quality of that initial question, and then that second level question which drives kids to look at each other and comment. That's where the relational thinking starts to happen. Okay, so do have a look at that. There's also in the app, and I'll just show you this in the app itself and on the website. In the app, on the left here, you've got a help button. This connects you to a whole load of resource on how to get started, how to do the things I've shown you today, and also you can start to mail us and ask us individual questions of your own. And of course, the other place you can go is to the blog, where we've got some great sources of content that's off the shelf, ready to roll with. Finally, just leave you with that community that I gave you. If there's any content in there that you think would be valuable for you to use with your class tomorrow, if there's something you want, just tell me which one it is. I can have that put into your account, ready to run with that with your students, and we can do that literally in the next, few hours. So if there's anything you fancy over the coming days and weeks, just let us know which one it is. I'll just give you my email, because I don't think I gave it to you on the presentation. I'll put it in there now. So you've got that. Oh, there it is, phil.stubbs@versoapp.com. If you send me a request, I can put something into there for you. Also, it could be you've got an idea. Look, I teach, I don't know, English literature, and I'm looking at X and Y. It may be that myself or one of the team here has some reference material, some points, or some ideas where you can go and get content, or some ideas of things that other teachers are doing that we can give you some support with in terms of pedagogy and practice. So do use that. And also, finally, the Flip Your Thinking Twitter account. We're always sharing examples of what schools are doing. We've got, thousands and thousands of teachers creating provocations with this, all the time. So we do have a large bank of evidence of stuff that's really working and making a difference in school. So just final questions. Yeah, the presentation, Jeremy's asking where do we get a copy of the presentation. That's in the Google folder that I gave you the link for. I'll put that on screen again at the end. Yeah, the deepening question. Kathleen's asking for resources on deepening questioning. That again is in the Google folder. There's document here on Verso strategies, and there's another one here on copy of questioning prompts. So there's a whole range of questioning strategies you can deploy there. Also, Kathleen, it'd be good to come to the feedback session on the 15th of December. I know it's really late in the school year, but do drop by. Yeah, Jeremy, they're both in there. So anything else you want, just shout me, drop me an email. So yes, great question. Thanks, Beth. Beth's asking, just to clarify, students can access without emails. Yes, students don't need to put their email in when creating a student account. Just leave that field blank in the form. Students don't need email, absolutely. So I should have mentioned that. Thanks for that, Beth, that reminder, Beth. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah, so Kathleen, that feedback webinar will be coming out in the next few days. So if you just click on the link and you'll be in. It'd be great to have you on board, but I'll make sure the guys in the office know you're keen. So we'll make sure you're on that. That's really looking at a really deeper look at student voice and how that informs what we do. Okay, so just about finished on time. Thanks. That's great, Beth. Better than Google Classroom. I'll send you a check in the post, Beth. That's a great statement. Thank you very much. Hope it's been helpful. We have recorded the session, and that will go live in the next 24 hours. So we'll send that around in case you need to revisit. But do follow up with myself do send me an email of things you're doing. It's great for us to actually know how you're getting on and how you're going with this. And I'll just leave that Google Doc address on screen. But thank you very much for sitting through that. That's a long hour, but hopefully it's been worthwhile. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Phil. And I just wanted to remind everybody that Phil's previous webinar, which dealt a lot with student engagement and questioning, you can find over at edchatinteractive.org. It was a wonderful session, and I encourage anybody to who has more questions about that to check that out. And then you can also head over to the events section at EdChat Interactive and sign up for the next session with Phil and everybody from Verso. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, everybody.
That's great. Thanks, Jeremy. We'll be in touch with you shortly about Brisbane Grammar. I know we want to run an event up there, so and come and see you guys. So thanks for jumping on. And if there's anything at all, because we're so local, we can do to help you, just really drop me a line, and we can put a whole lot of support in remotely before we get up there and work face to face with you guys. Okay. Thank you very, very much, and bye everybody. Thank you.